Ah, the secret of Seath's immortality. It is an effect of the primordial crystal, a sacred treasure pillaged by Seath when he turned upon the ancient dragons. So only by destroying the primordial crystal can you so much as scratch his hide.
Hello everyone, this is Aegon of Astora, and welcome back to my casual playthrough of Dark Souls. This is episode 26, being recorded on Saturday the 23rd of January, and I hope you're all having a fantastic day whenever it is you find yourself watching this. So, as a result of the lengthy hiatus that I was forced to take with this series, which stretched from October 24th was the date that I finished editing, and uploaded episode 25. So it's been almost a full 3 months since I last recorded and edited and uploaded a episode of this series. And there are several reasons for that, but simply put, Bloodborne Let's Talk Lore is, and has been since I started it, the central focus of this channel. And that meant, when things got really busy for me with school and whatnot, that between the two playthroughs, one had to take the back seat for a little while, and wound up being this one, for the reasons I've already outlined. So, when I fired up my Xbox 360 and loaded up Dark Souls, there were a number of things that I just couldn't remember where we left off and what was happening. Most notably, perhaps, is the egghead form. And I remembered that I made a commitment. I went and I watched through parts of the previous episode 25, and recalled that I committed to allowing the transformation to come through, or allowing the transformation to take place, such that our egghead form advances to its next phase, and that we would be therefore unable, or thereby unable, to use our kick attack. And so I realized that in order to proceed with the next thing that I wanted to do in the playthrough, we would need to get that done at the outset. So that's what we're here to do. And on that note, we left off the previous the episode prior, episode 24, having defeated Kirk for the last time. And now we find this corpse here that was not there previously. So let's have a look. Helm of Kirk, Knight of Thorns and notorious member of the Darkwraiths. A dense patch of thorns grows from its surface. It is a fitting item for the murderous Kirk, for by simply wearing it and rolling, one can damage enemies. So beyond differences in the line breaks, there doesn't seem to be any unique information conveyed by the different pieces. But there is much that can be gleaned from the fact that we find him here. That after having been defeated by us several times, Kirk chose this as his final resting place, as the place where he would eventually give up. That, he lost hope and just no longer had any will to keep going, to keep respawning at the bonfire and invading other players. And this is something that, if you are following along with, if you've been watching if you've been watching ENB, Epic Name Bro, his from the Dark playthrough of Dark Souls, you'll know that in an interview, I believe it was with a Japanese radio station, a Japanese radio interview, Hidetaka Miyazaki flat out stated that Kirk, though he was a member of the Darkwraiths, that membership, his relationship with that covenant, was only a means to an end. The means being invading other players and stealing their humanity as a result of a successful invasion, and the end being that he, for some reason or another, and I say for some reason or another, for obvious reasons I should say, took pity on Kalon, the Fair Lady, unofficial name, of course, and wanted to give her humanity to help her get better, to improve her really sad state. And we've spoken about this in several of the previous episodes, and unfortunately, due to the amount of time, the temporal distance between now and those episodes, I can't recall in what depth we spoke about it. So, but I do seem to recall speaking about it in a fair bit of depth. So we're not going to go into it in great detail, but as I was stating previously, in order to satisfy my commitment from the previous episode of advancing the state of our parasite infection, we are going to need to pop some souls. And I questioned in the previous episode whether or not consumable souls actually made any difference in terms of whether they counted towards the amount that you would need in order to advance your infection to the next phase. And I added via text on the screen a clarification that says yes, in fact, the souls do count, even though they're not halved like the rest of them, whereby when you gain souls from killing an enemy, half goes to the parasite and half goes to you. So if you will all permit me a brief fast forward while we try to trigger that transformation. We'll just do that now. So we equipped precisely the amount of souls we needed to consume in order to trigger the next phase of the transformation. And yeah, it's quite interesting because it becomes a little bit more elongated, but it doesn't seem to extend in terms of its size. It doesn't seem to become wider or thicker, if I may hazard a terrible explanation. And you can see, if I can trigger this from the front, that not unlike the second form, the infected form of the bloodletting beast in Bloodborne, we have a parasite that reaches out from our head and attempts to attack enemies. And that's pretty weird. So I don't know. let's remove our armor and see. Yeah, so it only seems to affect our head. Unfortunately, although I understand the reasons why, we can't allow our infection. Our infection won't ever advance to the state where we'll wind up looking like Eingyi. Speaking of whom...
Well, now, you're just like me. Your dedication is fully apparent. Only, well, your head looks awful. Why not try this? I've no use for it any longer.
Seem to recall us having read the description for that item previously, but let's review. Bitter, sour chestnut. Removes parasitic egg from body. The egg bearers have chosen to serve the flame of chaos, and the eggs symbolize this selfless choice. Naturally, these chestnuts are forbidden, but are allowed under special circumstances. So, yeah, the implication of the middle part of this description, where it says the egg bearers have chosen to serve this flame of chaos and the eggs symbolize this selfless choice, would seem to suggest that, and the fact that he actually has the egg vermifuge in his possession and says that he doesn't need it, would suggest that, he's in this form by choice, that he could, at least to some degree, cure that which ails him. But as a show of dedication to the fair lady, he's opted not to. Or alternatively, you could also look at it in terms of him saying he doesn't need it any longer because it would do him no good. That his infection has already reached so advanced a state that, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't make any difference.
Oh, hello. What is it that you need?
Unique pyromancy crafted by Eingyi, considered a heretic even at the Great Swamp. Create poison mist. Eingyi became an egg-bearing undead who serves a deformed young girl who speaks an unintelligible tongue. Why was Eingyi driven from the Great Swamp? One only need cast this pyromancy, a perverse diversion from the art of fire, to find out.
Incidentally, do you have an interest in pyromancy? If you have, I shall share my flame with you. You have served our fair lady well. Now, let this strength be yours. In all honesty, I am envious. What comfort can I offer without speaking her tongue? Worse than undead, we are diseased and unwanted, like the grime of the Great Swamp. But my dear fair lady, she cried for me and swallowed the great blight pus, despite Mistress Quelag's orders to the contrary. Worse than
So there we have it. That's what has happened to Kalon. She swallowed the blight pus as a way of preventing further hardship from being inflicted upon the likes of Eingyi and his contemporaries. And also to, just a really selfless act that she committed in spite of her sister's orders to the contrary. So assuming that Kalag, it's been so long, not only will I be incredibly rusty in terms of the gameplay, but also I imagine with the lore and of course with the pronunciations, as is usually the case with me. But Kalag ordered her not to do what she did, not to sacrifice herself for the inhabitants of presumably the Great Swamp, or wherever we happen to be in terms of what it once was and what it is now. He also mentioned something else, that without being able to speak her tongue, there's not really all that much he can offer her, and that he's envious of us. And I'm not sure if the ring was what triggered that, but we are wearing the Old Witch's ring, which we took as our starting gift for Aegon II, which says Old Ring from an Old Witch, engraved minutely with indecipherable script, but seemingly useless. And it does have one use, and that is it will allow us to speak with Kalon, to understand her unintelligible tongue.
Quelag, my dear sister.
So suggesting perhaps that she is either so far gone because of her illness that she doesn't realize that we are, in fact, not Kalag. Or alternatively, potentially that because we defeated Kalag, we, are carrying with us. We have an air about us. The essence of her soul, perhaps, is intertwined or indistinguishable from her perspective from that of our own and the remaining souls which we've absorbed over the course of the playthrough.
Quailag, what is it? Enter a covenant again. Of course. Let me try. Quailag, my dear sister. The eggs. It hurts. They've gone still. I am afraid it may be too late. I am so sorry, dear sister. I'll be fine. I have you, dear sister. But promise me that you will take care of yourself. I'll be fine. Goodbye, Quailag. Do be safe.
I'm sorry. I really am. Let's see, because normally, as I'm led to understand that after you speak with her, he will be ecstatic at the fact that someone else is able to speak her tongue. But I think by having put on the ring before we spoke with her, that we may have screwed up the order of events there with Eingyi.
Oh, hello. What is it that you need? Worse than undead?
Yeah, so we screwed it up a little bit. But that's okay. So yeah, lots to take in here. But again, with Kirk, I think it's fantastic. Just a wonderful piece of implicit storytelling. That, he was this person who throughout the majority of the game, and his item description even describes him. The item descriptions for his armor even describes him as a notorious Darkwraith. But his placement and, by Hidetaka Miyazaki's own admission, he was in fact using the Darkwraith only as a means to an end. And the end being that he wanted to help Kalon. Help alleviate her of her sickness by providing her with humanity that he would have taken from other players as a member of the Dark Race. So really just fascinating, tragic, wonderful, all at once. So yeah, before we go any further, we should use the egg vermifuge. Which, yeah, pretty easy. You wouldn't expect for a condition that far advanced for the cure to be simply something that you just pop in your mouth and it just melts away, but yep. So you may recall at the end of the previous episode that we left Master Logan in a state of... I'm not even sure how to really describe it.
Oh, hello there. Where have you been? Time is a resource. Let's delve in promptly. The tomes stored in these archives are truly magnificent. A great pool of knowledge. The fruits of superior wisdom and an unquenchable desire for the truth. Some would say Seath had an unsound fixation. But his work is a beautiful, invaluable resource. All progress demands sacrifice. And I certainly bear no antipathy for that wonderful, scaleless beast. Farewell.
Okay, that's weird, because I seem to recall us getting that dialogue last time. And then also advancing his dialogue to the point where he no longer recognized us. So maybe I'm misremembering that. But there will be a lot of that going forward as we proceed through the remainder of this playthrough, just given how long it's been since A, I've played Dark Souls 1 at all, and B, since we recorded an episode of this playthrough, which both points in time are more or less the same. These are prism stones, if I recall correctly, hinting to the player, and since we already have an almost maxed out supply, we dropped whatever excess we had on our person. But I guess I should explain why this is being uploaded, especially after so long a hiatus, and not, say, episode 19 of Bloodborne Let's Talk Lore. And the reason for that is simply the reason why I started doing this playthrough to begin with. It's the same. That is, there are times when, I might have a couple hours to do some recording and editing, but where I also don't have the time to devote, I don't have the amount of time I would need to devote to an entire episode of Bloodborne Let's Talk Lore, and this is very much one of those instances. More specifically, I will state that we have the next episode of Bloodborne Let's Talk Lore is going to feature a guest. It's going to be a very long and very comprehensive episode, and so, but because it's going to be featuring a guest, it's, I can't complete the episode by myself. So what I have already recorded the footage for it, and as with the previous guest appearance with Redgrave, this episode will be recorded in more of a conversational format, along with my guest in post-commentary. So in other words, though I have completed the commentary for it, though I have completed I've recorded the gameplay for the episode, I have not yet finished editing it together and sharing it with my guest. So that will likely be, so I'm recording this episode as as a stopgap in a sense. So again, like I said, virtually the reason I'm recording this is the same reason why I started making this playthrough to begin with. And that is to give you all something if I'm not able to have a new episode of Bloodborne Let's Talk Lore ready to be released. And so I'm recording this on Saturday the 23rd of January, but if all goes according to plan, you should be watching this, if you're watching it shortly after its release, you should be watching this on the 24th of January, Sunday. And even though I say I'm recording on the 23rd, it is currently 2 in the morning on the 23rd, so it'll take some time tomorrow to edit this together, and hopefully have it uploaded for all of you for Sunday. So then that way, at least in parts to make up for the fact that there won't be another episode of Bloodborne Let's Talk Lore until the following Sunday at the earliest. So this golem conveniently is trapped in the middle of all of these trees here. And I say conveniently because this gives us an opportunity to look close up at the uppermost crystal protruding from its, what seems to be the back of this golem's neck. And you can see very clearly that Sieglinde is trapped within the crystal. That is Siegmeyer's daughter. How she got there, I'm not entirely sure. But there she is. And I'm not recording in 1080p because I'm playing on the Xbox 360, which for Dark Souls 1 only outputs at 720p, but based on what I'm seeing, you should be able to see rather clearly her state of suspension inside of the crystal there. That's the clearest I've ever been able to actually get it, thanks to, once again, this golem being trapped. Again, I was going to say something mean there, but I'll just leave it. This golem being trapped amidst these trees here. And in fact, we can get a little bit closer even, or can we? So yeah, there she is. Pretty weird. You can sort of see her fall from above there into the spot where she's currently standing, so that's pretty weird.
It was you who rescued me. Why, thank you. I am Sieglinde of Catarina. I don't know how I ended up in that crystal. It wasn't terrible in there, but I could hardly move. I must think of some way to repay you. Oh, have you seen my father? You wouldn't miss him, a suit of armor just like mine. Thank goodness. I knew he was here somewhere. Well then, now I must find him. Thanks again, truly. Now if you'll just stay put and keep out of trouble. Thank goodness.
Yep. That's pretty cool. Let's see if, like Siegmeyer, you can kind of get a partial glance at what she looks like. And much like her father, the armor doesn't seem to fit her. The armor seems to be a fair bit larger than is suggested by the size of her head.
Thank goodness.
Okay, so far so good with Siegmeyer's questline. I must be honest, I must admit to feeling a tad anxious about that and several other quest lines that we were in the progress of completing when the series went on hiatus, but that we've since kind of left hanging in a way that leaves me a little bit concerned that I might absentmindedly screw up one or more of these quest lines. So here's the hoping that I can actually remember all the things that I had planned and that unfortunately I did not explicitly write down in my notes for the playthrough. I have a rough idea of the bosses we have left to fight, the order in which I would like to fight them, the music I would like to use for certain bosses, but beyond that, just gotta hope that I'm somehow able to recall how it is I had planned to, undertake the rest of this playthrough, because we still have a fair bit left. If I recall correctly, we have not yet ventured into the Painted World, so that's something we're still going to have to do. We still have to deal with the Four Kings, we still have to deal with Sif before we can even deal with the Four Kings. We still have to deal with and discuss Gwendolyn. Gravelord Nito. So pretty much, yeah, there's still lots left to do. And so it's kind of surprising to me that we're on episode 26. And so though I can't promise that this series will return with regular uploads, I do want to wrap up this series, as well as Bloodborne Let's Talk Lore, without, without cutting it too close. Without cutting it too close with relation to the release of Dark Souls 3. And of course, my ability to live up to that will depend in part on how crazy things get once again this semester. Thankfully, my teaching load is a fair bit lighter this time around than it was in the previous semester, so that should help a great deal in terms of allowing me to balance all of my various commitments. But as always, I really can't make any promises. So when I first came to this place, not only was I perplexed, as I imagine everyone is, by the invisible platforms, but I also thought to myself it would be a fantastic idea to take out some of these. I don't know why, because, they're not doing anything. But I figured that they would probably have some pretty cool drops or something, the moonlight butterflies here. And very quickly realized that it was a big mistake to mess with them. That crystal golem, if I recall correctly, is a single spawn, so we did kind of get off. We got off kind of easy there by dealing with him so handily. And this is another part that has long confused me. So I think that we're going the right way here. And if we turn around, of course, we see a number of crystal lizards that we could chase afterwards. Could chase after, I should say. And in that direction over there is a very wayward path that leads eventually to a blue titanite slab. If any of you would like for me to show you how it is that I tend to go about getting that blue titanite slab, then don't hesitate to let me know in the comments below and we will return here. But until such time as someone indicates to me that they would like to see me do that, I'm just going to leave it, I think. Imminent fall, thank you. I honestly do not remember. I don't think I went the right way, to be honest. Although, no. Because one way of figuring out where the path is looking at how or whether these particles fall and dissipate, or whether they keep going straight down. And this is how I would have demonstrated getting the blue titanite slab, is by using arrows. You can illuminate the path before you by simply shooting it and seeing whether or not it goes through. Or, of course, as the game suggests, by virtue of those prism stones that it provided in that chest before we entered the garden before the crystal caves, you could also just use prism stones, which have the added benefit of not disappearing after a predetermined amount of time. But I really have a strong feeling that I've somehow gone wrong somewhere here, and that I'm about to die a very embarrassing death. In an area that, as a person who has put countless hundreds of hours into this game, I really should know better how to navigate it. But so far, so good. No, I think we did actually go the right way. Alright, cool. Okay, so now, I have a very, very highly specific plan for how it is that we're going to deal with not only Seath, but also everything prior to Seath. So this seems like a good time for a fast forward, because this is going to take a little while. Okay, so with all of those guys out of the way, part 1 of the plan is complete. And I did want to note also that these guys drop purging stones, the item description for which reads, ash-colored stone encasing a skull. Secret treasurer of our store, the Earl of Kareem, reduces curse buildup and breaks curse. Humans are helpless against curses and can only redirect their influence. The purging stone does not dispel curses but receives them as a surrogate. The stone itself was once a person or some other being. We can see very clearly that purging stones or something akin to them are contained within these that these clans carry them around. They also carry around Twinkling Titanite, which I don't really understand. But the description for that reads, is imbued with a particularly powerful energy. After this Titanite was peeled from its slab, it is said that it received a special power, but its specific nature is not clear. So I don't really understand. I understand very well why they would drop prism stones. That makes a lot of sense. Twinkling Titanite, on the other hand, I'm not so sure. Okay, time for phase 2 of my plan. yeah, I've had that planned since September. So you can imagine my anxiety at the prospect of screwing that up after all that I had done in the lead up to this part of the playthrough, including a build that got wiped out and erased together with the rest of my Dark Souls files. That, yeah, I was so close to getting it done, but, there was also the possibility that I could screw it up, make a fool out of myself, but yeah, we pulled it off. We one-shotted Seath the Scaleless. And I should point out that I got the idea for doing that, and that I've always wanted to do that after watching Vegeta 311, after watching his Dark Souls low-level one-shot boss challenge, where he used this very setup to one-shot Seath the Scaleless, and an incredibly interesting and resourceful arrangement of other setups to one-shot several other bosses as well. So, as always, you'll find a link in the description to the video from which, I got the idea to do that setup and one-shot Seath. And I would highly recommend checking out his one-shot, low-level one-shot boss challenge in general, just because it's awesome. And it shows how many different ways you can approach this game in terms of its replayability and the various different things that you can do to increase the challenge and make it more interesting. But, so now with Seath utterly obliterated, we can, have a look at the boss room, and perhaps more importantly, at the Lord Soul Shard that we received. The bequeathed Lord Soul Shard. Soul of the Albino, Seath the Scaleless, a fragment of a Lord Soul discovered at the dawn of the Age of Fire. Seath allied with Lord Gwyn and turned upon the dragons, and for this he was awarded dukedom, embraced by the royalty and given a fragment of a great soul. Although just a piece, it will still satiate the Lord Vessel. So yeah, pretty cool. Suppose we might as well go share the good news that we've just defeated Seath. Might as well go let Master Logan know.
Who are you? Stay clear of my work. Curses upon you. How dare you disturb me?
So that's the point I thought we got him to in the previous episode, but maybe I was misremembering. But yeah, he no longer recognizes us.
Who are you? Stay clear.
And he thinks we're just here to spy on him, perhaps, or to steal his work. Or we're just a nuisance, really.
The tomes stored in these archives are truly magnificent, a great pool of knowledge, the fruits of superior wisdom and an unquenchable desire for the truth. Some would say Seath had an unsound fixation, but his work is a beautiful, invaluable resource. All progress demands sacrifice, and I certainly bear no antipathy for that wonderful, scaleless beast.
And so we can see that, for one reason or another, we found Logan naked, without, other than his hat. Yeah, in the spot where he initially came into contact with Seath the Scaleless, when he learned that, yeah, Seath is, as he put it, a true undead. And I may have heard this suggested elsewhere, but I was just thinking that maybe the reason why he took off his clothing was somehow as a gesture of solidarity towards Seath. That, you know, you don't have scales, I don't have clothing, here I am. And then found that Seath was in fact not here, in the same place where he found him previously. That in whatever, you know, state he was in, whether it was one of hollowing or insanity, which, as I've argued, you could look at, you know, the mental issues that the various characters in the game have. You could look at those as precursors to hollowing, as opposed to the two being distinct forms of, you know, mental illness. That in whatever state he was in, he thought it would be a good idea to come and say hello to Seath, and that perhaps Seath would accept him now that he had spent all this time studying the same materials that Seath had, that they could share in whatever knowledge they were able to acquire. So before we open that, actually, let's have a look at the gear that we just picked up. Tin Crystallization Catalyst. Catalyst imbued in terrifying crystal magic, used by Logan after his fixation on Seath. Makes all sorceries incredibly powerful, but demands extremely high intelligence from its wielder, and halves sorcery usages. Gigantic hat worn by the great sorcerer Logan. It completely hid his face, which led to his nickname Big Hat. Famously antisocial, Logan used it to block out noise and people's stares so he could focus on his own thoughts, but it does not possess any special magic powers. Sorcery developed by Logan during his infatuation with Seath the Scaleless. Emit crystal breath of Seath the Scaleless. Although it no longer causes curses, what madness caused old Big Hat to appropriate this frightful power of the ancient dragons? Large Magic Ember. Ember required for weapon ascension. Large Magic Ember, a form of sorcery. Handled only by the Vinheim magic blacksmiths. And somewhere up on the rafters there's either a soul of a hero or a soul of a great hero. But we don't need it, so we're just going to leave it there. But if you are doing this leg of the quest line, you should know that there is a consumable soul that will give you either 10 or 20,000 souls somewhere in this room up on the rafters. And finally, we return to where Logan once was. Find that there's now a chest here, containing the rest of his gear and his original, or his old catalyst. Robe worn by Big Hat Logan. It is said to have been from his apprentice days at Dragon School, but is so worn out no one knows what it originally looked like. Logan, who cared little for his appearance, no doubt ever bothered to change out of it. Gloves worn by Big Hat Logan. They are indistinguishable from the ordinary kind worn by travelers. And same is said of his boots. And finally, Logan's Catalyst. Catalyst of Big Hat Logan, the great sorcerer and seeker of knowledge. Originally the same catalyst employed by the Vinheim sorcerers, only terribly strengthened over time due to Logan's use. Very powerful when used by one of superior intelligence. So yeah, I'm not sure if I have much more to say at this point, due in part to fatigue. So if there's anything that came up over the course of this episode, don't hesitate to leave a comment below, and we'll do our best to address it in the next episode. But that's going to do it for this one, so thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.